Sheldon Primus.
Welcome to the Safety Consultant Show with Sheldon Primus, where we blend safety smarts with business brilliance and a pinch of Sheldon's signature wit. Whether you're a safety pro, a fresh-faced consultant, or just safety curious, get ready for a show that'll educate, entertain, and elevate your safety game. Let's dive into the art of consulting with your safety Sherpa himself, Sheldon Primus.
This episode is powered by SafetyFM.
All right, gang, welcome to the show. Good to hear you, see you, all that stuff. What a great August 21st to 2024. Hopefully everyone's doing okay. I have had me some times lately. I think I'm gonna have to do like a little catch-up show with you guys just to let you know what's happening. Not today's show. Today's show we've got like a buddy of mine, Jim Poesl, buddy of the show. You guys have heard Jim before twice from the Safety War fame, and it was really good having Jim. We honestly touched like about everything. Just like two friends when you get together, hadn't talked for a while, and just kind of talk and just truly just go over a whole bunch of stuff. So you could have heard the episode if you actually went to Safety Wars. Jim played it on his show. I'm going to play you guys so you could hear it on my show. And look up safetywars.com. You'll see Jim Poesl, Poesl. And so I am... he even explains how to spell it later on, too. This is great. So in our reunion, we actually, he called me because he heard the episode I did on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then also he was thinking about ISO 45003, the psychological safety, and just wanted to talk a little bit about that. And then also the Chevron deference and what's the possibility that that's going to really shake up OSHA. So we are chatting about that, which is pretty cool, you know. So my take on DEI is the organizations who don't use it are actually leaving money on the table. So the initials DEI has now become vilified in the U.S., but diversity, equity, and inclusion, come on, who could be against diversity? Who could be against equity? Who can be against inclusion? And when you find the answer to that, you got a dangerous person. So DEI is not a curse word. So I go over that in my episode, and Jim was just trying to, get a good feel for that too. And we talked a little bit about the Chevron deference, and if you're not familiar with that one, it's a U.S. case that was many, many years ago where basically established the fact that the agencies such as OSHA, the Occupational Health and Safety Administration, that OSHA, they are going to have professionals and guidance groups and advisory boards and everything, and they're going to do a technical standard that should just basically hit all of the hazards and get you some sort of controls for the hazard. And the Chevron deference made it where the agencies were tasked with this, were okay with this. But over the years, there's the Supreme Court has decided with their conclusion that the court is going to decide ambiguous rules. So ambiguous rules are going to be something that might be akin to what we will call performance standards, where OSHA will tell you got to do something, but how you get there is up to you. Stuff like that is going to be threatened in the near future because of the overturn of the Chevron deference. So let's say someone doesn't believe the standard that's about to come out with heat stress should start at whatever their temperature is. I actually can't remember, but let's say for an example, it starts at 95 degrees and 80% humidity, and you have to start doing something to protect your workers. Okay, so at that point, someone could truly say, if the law comes out, hey, Congress didn't do this law, it came from OSHA. Congress needs to write this law and vote on it in Congress and get it passed in the Senate, get it signed into law by the president. And without that, whenever there's an ambiguous rule, it goes to the court, and the court will decide what the rule should be. So that means we're really, if you look at the U.S. legal system, each judge basically can make their own decision, and it's autonomous. And yes, there's some guiding principles, especially when it's sentencing, but typically you're going to see personalities of judges show up in their rulings. So that's the danger here. It's not, we don't know what it is yet. We got to see the first case that comes out and somebody challenged this one. So I'm eagerly looking. So Jim and I talked about that. We also talked about things like self-determination theory from Deci and Ryan. We talked about human and organization performance and some insights from Dr. Todd Conklin, who was great because Jim was telling me a story of him and Dr. Todd and Jim going to Disney together. And he literally is like pointing out hazards as he's going through Disney. That sounds like Todd. That cracked me up. All right. I hit the wrong button. That's so funny. But yeah, that's about right. When you get into safety, you just can't turn it off. It's just, it's always there. You think you can turn it off. Nope. So you're going to see everything as a hazard. Anyway, so we had could be rambling. Yeah, we could have a rambling conversation, but we always came right back around to safety. We talked about an emergency assistance program. We talked about how the Union Carbide accident in Bhopal was kind of the thing that led the William Steiger Act, and then also it led for process safety management too. Well, that's later on. But we talked about the William Steiger Act, and that's really before OSHA. If anybody did business with the U.S. government, they had to prove that they're going to protect their workers to a certain standard. And that was the standard that was set and through the William Steiger Act, and people had to pretty much follow that if they're going to do business with the government. And later on, we started getting regulations through OSHA. We also talked a little bit about the Alec Baldwin failed movie Rust, and how he just the EHS side of that, just really sad case. I don't know if you heard the story, but someone died on the set because of mishandling of firearms. So I remember when it first happened, I texted a friend of mine, Phil LeDuc, and asked Phil, hey, what's up? And actually he is one of those safety people for the movies. So he explained everything to me, and me and Jim kind of had a little bit of that conversation too there. So that's a bunch. If you were to look at the keywords for this show, you're going to see things like Alex Jones from Infowars, because Safety Wars is actually kind of like a wink, if you would, to the Infowars, because of the popularity and the bombacity of it. And Jim tells a story where literally the Infowar people called him to see if he was part of the he was called by some sort of someone who was doing, I guess, maybe accounting or something, or IRS type thing, and they're looking to see if he was part of that network. And he's like, oh no, don't sue me. I'm not Alex Jones, I'm not Infowars, I'm Safety Wars. And so that we mentioned that too. So we actually talked a bunch, and it had a good time. I think you guys are going to really enjoy it because Jim's good people. He's got a golden heart, and he's straightforward, shoots on the hip. Us from the north, I was born and raised in Queens, New York. Jim's from Jersey. We're a little bit different. We tell our mind, we say it in different ways, but we speak our mind. So I honestly think you guys are going to love it. This week I did not do where we're from and who's listening, because you guys know I just transitioned away from Bcast back to podcast.co. So I do not have a whole bunch of data yet, but as the system transitions over, then it'll really help. So if you're listening today statistically, there are more people listening to me that have not subscribed to the show that have. So what I need you to do is make sure you don't get lost in case the show kind of like meanders somewhere where it is some gap in space, time, and internet. So go ahead and subscribe, because then your actual player then will pull the show. So you don't have to rely on what's happening on the back end, as long as you you have the show subscribed to, and it's just really easy. It's free. You just hit the little button that says subscribe, and it shows me some support because it puts my numbers up. And then when I get to show advertisers, the first thing they want to know is, what's your traffic? What's your traffic? And I was like, I don't know. So I give them the traffic information later on. And what that does is it helps me position to get some deals so that we could get sponsors for the show with some things that you guys use. So I just wanted to tell you that my website, sheldonprimus.com, is broken. I don't know why. I'm working on it. So if you have gone there lately and saw either nothing or some gobbledygook, I'm sorry. I'm working on that. So best way to reach me right now would be through LinkedIn. So you just go to LinkedIn, look up Sheldon Primus, and you'll see me. So it's like LinkedIn/in/Sheldon Primus. So that might be the best way to kind of like reach me that way. And hopefully I get this whole, just websites thing worked out. It was a bummer. So, oh well, let's not leave on a bummer. Let's leave on something happy, because I know you guys could do this. Listen to this episode with Jim. It has been awesome. And go get him.
Sheldon, it's been a long time, about a year, and I'm not on a baseball field like last time.
That's true. That was true. Last time you were on the field, you were literally on the field. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I was doing play-by-play for Little League and everything. So that day, but not play-by-play, but I was in charge of the sound system.
Yeah, I remember.
So we have Sheldon Primus, who's been at this a little bit longer than I have, podcasting and everything else. Much more experience in that area. He is, what's the name of your podcast?
Safety Consultant Show with Sheldon Primus. And that's it. I couldn't really think of another name. And I was like, well, I do stuff for safety consultants.
I wanted to hear it from the expert here, Sheldon. So basically your podcast is about safety consulting, and a lot of it is focused on the safety consultant or safety manager themselves and how to build a business and how to communicate and things of that nature, as well as like what we do with insightful programs on new things coming out. And you're the one that I got the idea for going on the OSHA website and starting to read things.
Oh, so, get out. Hold on. Let me warn you. Why, thank you.
They... you know what I do. I go on the OSHA website and I read the press releases, and I go into the press releases, and sometimes we hit upon some really
It's awesome.
Big things there. I mean, awesome information.
And you get so much when you get on the, and everyone, it's just do OSHA.gov. When you get there, you're looking at the top of the heading, you're in a, banner, and you'll see just an area where you can just hit their news. And it's, like right about the about page and everything else and the help page. But it is really good for you to sign up for what they call quick takes. And the quick takes is every other week you're going to get a little snippet of what OSHA's doing. And it's really cool because it gives you a little heads up as to what's the regulation. But then also it's one of those things like when you see the sites and the penalties and you're like, dang. But not only that, but it's also the hazards that these workers are exposed to. It's also could be things your workers are exposed to. So you can see the little way OSHA thinks about these hazards by reading those stories. Yeah, for your show, it's like gold.
My favorite one recently was where there was a trench collapse. All right. And no fatalities, but the guy did get hurt. And his supervisor, I don't know how this wasn't a criminal investigation, an actual criminal investigation. The supervisor was throwing stuff at him and hitting him with objects, as it was described, to get him not to call 911 when he's in there buried.
All right, that's going to be a willful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, how is there not a lawsuit? How is there's not a thing? And then, like 3 weeks later, he did a similar situation.
Yep. Yeah. That's a willful. You can see the pattern. And for those of you that don't know, OSHA, like, especially if you're overseas and you're not too sure about the U.S. OSHA, they actually have like little, well, it's not little. There's technical terms. You'll find it in what's called a Field Operation Manual 164, FOM 164. Just put that in the search box and you'll see Chapter 6 shows you how it breaks down all the citations and everything. So when it's a willful, that means you really just cared about the work and you just disregarded your workers and you put them in the situation to get hurt. So that one that you described is a willful all day long legally. You could just look at the definition there and it's like,
oh yeah. And then we had the other one was I got from New Mexico OSHA, and to my knowledge we were the only show that actually covered this. Was the Alec Baldwin Rust Productions thing, where I actually got the copy of the report. It was all publicly available on their website, and I actually went through it. It was the summaries available. Every once in a while, they screw up and they send out the entire report. But on this, which is interesting too, but that's not normal.
Yeah.
And what they did was, I went through the whole thing, and Ian Punnett, rest in peace, from Coast to Coast AM, he got a copy of that show, and he said, "Why isn't anybody talking about this?" And everything. And when the East Palestine issue happened in Ohio, I had posted something and he put me on Coast to Coast AM, which was really good. 654 radio stations.
That's awesome. Oh, goodness. Well,
and to be honest with you, one of my goals for starting Safety Wars in the podcast was to go on that show.
You hit it.
I've been listening to it for pretty much my entire adult life. So I achieved that. But anyway, back to you. This is about you.
No, it's not about me. This is a conversation from us.
Yeah. Yeah, but I invited you here. I don't want to, dominate. I have a tendency to do that. And if you hadn't noticed, you also have the Facebook group, the Safety Consultants Facebook group. So if you're on Facebook, you're dealing with safety consultants, which you invited, you started it.
Yep.
The great Jay Allen.
My man.
Me, and the diary of a bald man himself.
Alan Wolford. I love me some Alan.
Are all managers here.
Yep.
So of that.
Yeah.
So you want to talk, what's posted on there? It's mostly programs from me, you, Jay, and Alan, and different insightful things. And, it's like any other Facebook group. You get stuff on there that sometimes doesn't belong on there. And you end up rescinding it and deleting it and everything.
Yeah, we get that. And the group, if you go to facebook.com/groups with an S /safety consultant, no S after consultant, you'll get there and you'll have to ask 3 simple questions so we get to decipher if you're a bot or not. And most people miss like the basics, which is, do you agree to the terms of this group? And they don't have anything there, and we obviously can't let you in the group if you can't even agree to the terms. So that's what we really do with the managing portion of it, and then make sure that it doesn't get too spammy. But the purpose of the group, when I started it like Lord, it might be about 5 years now. And the idea was I wanted it to be an area where people could talk about safety consulting and just a business in a free tone. Because, you go ahead right now in any Facebook group and type in, how much do you charge for your 10-hour course? And you might get a handful, if that, of people telling you their actual prices. So the group originally was just to, open up that hood of the, that car and kind of go into the engine engine and check it out. And the metaphor here is the car being the consulting business. No one literally teaches you how to be a consultant. We know the safety chops, but the business chops was missing, and that was the idea, is to kind of mirror those things together. And the group was just so we get a safe space to talk and to really kind of communicate. And also, but if you want to promote stuff, we always let you promote. It's just my rule was one promotion in, help 3 people. So that was my original rule that I love is, you get one promotion, help 3 people. So you answer 3 different comments, or you talk about, what you could do to help someone else or promote them by a thread or something. So that was my original thought is, sure, promote, but go ahead, let's give back and then talk about stuff. I literally tell people my prices all the time. It changes and I give caveats, but the group is usually working together, and your input for not only this group, but man, I love there's another one out there that I see you in, the U.S. Safety.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been on social media to promote safety and health, and the podcast, the services you provide. It's all one of those.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it because I see it.
Well, what what you do is unique, because usually people say, well, you're helping your competitor. And my experience is that there's enough work out there, right? I think it's yours also.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to be another, like what we were talking about before, these big safety companies with 500, 600, 800 people out there working for them. That's not what my gig is. One, that's a lot of once you get above 5 people, you need a human resources manager.
Yeah.
Of some sort, even part-time.
Yeah.
You need an HR person, because you cannot do the work. You cannot do the managing. You cannot run HR and do the billing and the accounting and everything all yourself once you get over 5 people. So It becomes a complete and total nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's it not only is a nightmare, but it just becomes impractical, because honestly, you have to think of everything you do when you're starting a business for yourself is your hours equals money. So if you're taking time fooling around on the website and trying to figure that out, what's your salary times the hours of you spending your time? So when you're really doing growth in your business, the best thing you could do is focus your energy on what gets the business going and what keeps the business running and future stuff, and leave the administrative stuff as you grow to different people for that aspect. And you could do that with groups like Upworks. You could get someone to do it per contract. Don't take on a salary for someone full time unless you could pay for that person full time regularly, because they're giving up. They're believing and trusting in you that you're going to help support their family. So don't take that lightly. So do piecemeal stuff where you could get them for, project care to manage the thing for X amount of hours a week or something similar.
Right. So like with me, and if you've done business with me, you've heard of Tracy, right? And what happened was, when I was running for office, I started to get a lot of stuff. And my campaign manager, Nora, who's a friend of the program, I won't mention her last name, Nora, what she ended up doing was, she said, my husband's business partner, his wife, Tracy, manages business, like accounting, bookkeeping, everything. You need to get somebody like her here. And then when I met my wife, she said, you definitely have to get someone like her.
Yeah.
So she runs the whole side of the house for the last going on 15 years now.
Oh, that's awesome. And the symmetry when you actually meet somebody like that, it may take you a couple of times to find someone. And actually, for me, my assistant is my daughter. So I know that she's come from good stock, right?
The one working in Vietnam?
Yeah. And now she's in Malaysia.
World Wide Web, right?
Yeah. So she just travels. I'm only one of her clients, but she actually has the chops for it. So might as well have, a family member help you if you could do that.
Yeah.
Sure. The idea and I know the thought for me always goes around consulting, and not only do I help people who want to be consultants, but you guys who are not thinking about it yet, but you are the consultant for your company, you're here too. Don't think you're excluded in any way. Yeah. But generally, you're going to just surround yourself with people that are going to tell you could do stuff, and that's when you find that symmetry. If you say, "Man, I want to do this," and they don't tell you 5 reasons why you can't do it, they keep brainstorming with you of, "Oh, well, maybe we could try this angle, or let's try that angle," and that's the person to keep. That's the person that works.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that I want people to tell me when I'm wrong. You had, what was this, Phil Russell on a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, he is an OSHA lawyer, and had him on before, but Phil is really good at helping me understand rules and laws, because that's what he does at a high level.
Right.
And he does literally go and fight for people in front of federal OSHA in DC, and he's that guy.
Yeah, I mean, he had, on the latest one was with the legal cases that came out, the Chevron deference situation. I read the again, because of people like you, I read the actual, I read legal briefs, and I read Supreme Court decisions and everything.
Yeah.
How do you see that case impacting OSHA regulation? And basically, my understanding of it is that if there's a dispute on how a law is written, the agency is able to do the interpretation, and they have a mechanism set up, rather than an outside court, like a regular court system or anything like that.
Yeah,
and
that's current.
That's current, right.
Yeah.
So what's is that your understanding of it, basically? I know...
It's going to change. So currently that's the way it goes. And normally for occupational safety laws, it takes roughly about 8 years. That's like the sweet spot for anything to become a law, and has to go through all kinds of periods of comments and all that. And that minutia is kept in what's called the, OSHA kind of like keeps all that information together, and it's regulatory information and meeting notes and all that stuff. So that is, I forgot the term, but you'll still come to me when I'm not thinking about it. But, preambles. So the preambles is where you're going to keep that. So with the Chevron deference, if there is no, the overturning of the Chevron deference, which was in '84, the Chevron case, means that practically for us, so let's say OSHA does a specification standard where they are going to tell you that during the heat stress at a certain for it to be where regulation kicks in, it may be a certain wet bulb test, and it's going to tell you the humidity factor is this much, and now at 90 something degrees it triggers here. So if OSHA makes that law coming up soon, then someone could say, well, I don't believe that I could follow that, and it'd be really practical for me. So they're going to fight it and say, why can't I go at 100 degrees trigger this law?
Right.
So that conflict now with this overturn is going to go to a court. So it's going to go from local up to wherever. But the possibility would be,
there you go. I'm holding up a thermal anemometer.
That's it.
Right.
Yeah. So what'll be is the individual, now the court would say, well, we side with the business or we side with OSHA. So they make the decision. But if legislation, like actual Congress goes in, they make a law about heat stress with help from OSHA and their technical advisors and everything else, but Congress initiates it, and then it goes to Senate for approval, President signs it into law, then at that point, you would have the heat stress law. Imagine that times all of our rules and regs, right? So it's going to really bog down the system, but it's the mindset that Congress is functional is going to make it, the laws work. And that's not always the case when you look at the cycle of a government. Most governments have cycles where they're functional and not functional, and that's why you get political change, right? So the idea right now is with Chevron deference getting overturned, OSHA won't, and the technical advisors won't be the primary people to make that decision. It goes to the laws, to the court. So therefore, if you don't have a functional government at the time, and if you're in that cycle, then you may not have any new laws.
Yeah, my understanding always was that this grew out of the progressive era of the 1890s until about 1948 with the end of World War II and FDR, where it used to be an act of Congress to issue a regulation, and then they came up with this regulatory scheme, and then it got affirmed with the original case you're talking about that put in the Chevron deference, right? And then, like you said, cycles.
Each election has its own consequence too. So I guess you'll also have to see what's the change. And for OSHA, I talked to Jordan Barab, who was the assistant. He was assistant under Dr. Michaels when Obama was in office. So for 7 of the 8 years, and I asked him a question. I said, "Here's what I tell students, and am I right or wrong?" And I asked him what is the difference between when a Republican is in office and a Democratic president's in office. So he says usually OSHA still has to do their normal stuff of enforcing big things, but what you'll see in practice would be more business friendly under Republican, and compliant would be more compliance assistance type activity, and just let business regulate itself more. That's traditional conservative view. And then on the flip side, with the Democrats, usually it's going to be more of an enforcement type of thing, just to get business to act at least to minimum. So that seems to be when the cycles of elections make a big difference. Is if you do think that there's going to be a president that is going to get out of office, that change is the biggest change. So other than that, if you think a president's going to get reelected, then you're good until 8 years. Year one, and then 8 years later.
It's like this. I don't normally speak politics. It's about as deep as I'll get into it. Now that leads us to our next thing, which we wanted to talk about, was the whole, you had a program on DEI, 45, the ISO 450003. I can't forget.
Yeah,
2 zeros or 3 zeros and 3.
Yeah, 2 zeros.
Right. And what was the other topic on that? I forget offhand. I'm drawing a blank right now. It all was related to DEI and ISO and everything else with that.
Psychological safety.
Psychological safety, that's it.
Yeah. So that's the same with ISO, the psychological safety side. Oops, sorry, dropped my mic there.
Right. And what I think what was really profound on your podcast, on your show, and I don't know if you realize how profound it was on paper, all of this looks great here. It's very reasonable. ISO, right? We want to have a psychologically safe thing. We want to have happy employees if at all possible and promote that, right? Obviously.
Oh, yeah.
The ISO, International Standards Organization, that's meant as an adjunct to the Occupational Safety and Health ISO that they have out, right? That's basically... this is how you want to run a business. You want to run it, be professional and everything else. And one of the organizations I work with, they comply with that. If you're sign on with them as a consultant, you have to agree that this is how you're going to conduct yourself, because they're international corporation with clients all over Asia, all over North America, all over South America, Bermuda, the whole thing. So they comply with that. That way it's easy for them to manage all of their people. There's a question, go to ISO. right? Sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
And right now, I'm in the middle of doing a DEI program, an online program, because I'm hearing this on one side, and on the other side, I want to find out what reality is, right? And judge for myself, which is what I encourage everyone to do. Judge for yourself. You may agree with some of the things, you may disagree with some of them, but come up with a reason. And I had a thing, the 10 things I learned in 32 years of safety I put on a couple of weeks ago, right? And that was one of them, was think for yourself.
Yes.
Right? And what was profound was that you had said, well, politics got injected into this thing, and it's not necessarily it's not necessary. Can we just basically, I'm paraphrasing, but basically we got to treat each other with respect here.
Yeah.
And and that's not what I'm hearing from a lot of the other organizations I deal with the DEI.
Yeah.
It's become that. And any thoughts on that? You want to build on that at all, or?
Yeah, no, well, psychological safety, ISO 45003, and the DEI and the true intent of it, it all goes to the same ball of wax, which is culture. It's your organizational culture. So the original diversity, equity, and inclusion came from a Google project, and the project was just to see. They put two teams together, and or various amount of teams, I believe, but the ones that scored the best were the teams who had the diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that's when they coined the term actually in that event. So the idea was you're allowing a space for everyone to feel like they could be themselves, and in that case, you're going to also have the creativity of that team that is going to have many different experiences through their life experience and their cultural experiences.
Right.
So therefore, they have a little bit that could add to the project as a whole. So it's supposed to be, in the true sense of the word, helping an organization, or phrase, it's helping your organization be not only more functional, but then also to grow. It's a growth thing. So it's for if companies are going to look to push away diversity, equity, and inclusion, then they're actually leaving money on the table. So that's hard.
So
but the practice is where the things got messed up.
Yeah, I'll explain this a different way, and we'll use human and organizational professionals, whether we like to have that foisted on us or not, right?
Yes.
All right. Safety is a function of capacity and resilience. Your stuff you can do, plus your reactions and stuff, how you're able to adapt. Well, that's basically it, right? Right. So here with DEI, if you're not pursuing it inside your organization, even whether you're going outside and bringing in new people, or even in your current situation, right? Not bringing it with your current staff, I should say.
Yeah.
If you're not using their complete capacity, that's that makes zero sense.
Zero
sense. And if something happens, you have to be resilient. Again, if you're not using the complete capacity and going to the worker, asking them, hey, how can we make this a better place for you? No. So, for example, the companies say, well, we're all family here. They're not family. They're a team, because family is about unconditional love. You can have that black sheep uncle out there and nobody can stand, but guess what? You're going to invite them to Thanksgiving every year.
It's family.
It's family.
Yeah.
A team, not necessarily. You're not holding up there's accountability. You're not holding up your side of the thing. You got to start looking elsewhere in an extreme case. So along the lines, the whole idea is to use the entire capacity of your team and entire resilience, so you're able to adapt. I think there's a good tie-in to human organizational performance. It's a natural tie-in.
Absolutely, and it's a perfect tie-in, and the whole again, the whole baseline is structural. In when you're thinking of organization structure, it's just structural integrity of the actual organization is to also include the wealth of knowledge that you have. But what we've seen, the practice is where, oops, that's on my end. Sorry, guys. But the practice is going to be the biggest thing. So what we've seen the most was hiring practices. So DEI is in everything. It's not just in hiring practices, but when we see hiring and training, if someone is only going to look for someone that looks like me, I'm a African American, and if they want to just hit a quota of just having a certain number of African Americans in the job, they're missing the opportunity to truly learn. Because at first, with hiring practice for DEI, back when I'm like you, we were Gen Xers, remember the days when you only get into a position when your buddy gets you in a position, right?
Well, that still goes on, but
it does. But there's a whole spectrum where some people can't even get their foot in the door because they're not even considered, and that was what it was back then. And that's when the hiring practice with DEI started thinking, well, we need a quota, and that's what I think really took things to started making it where it became, when you add quotas to things, especially something like this, you might actually see where someone will think, I'm just as qualified as this next person, but I don't have the right color, and now I feel discriminated against because I'm white, I'm missing this position where someone who's African American is getting this position, and then the quota is met, but now you have a person who's feeling slighted, right? So the quota in itself, I think, did a disjustice, but what you should see is there is encouragement between two like candidates, regardless of race, sex, creed, whatever, and then the preference then would be, let's see how can we diversify the organization by also seeing now, can we put this diverse quote unquote, air quote for the guys that can't see me, this diverse person in this position. It should, that's at first how it started, and it needed to be just to at least start getting the playing field equal. But now when you're just doing it for numbers and you've missed the heart of, first, before you look for numbers of how many diverse faces you see in your workplace, are these positions being met by the most qualified person, regardless of any. So that's where I think it kind of.
Can I borrow a phrase from one of our colleagues?
Oh, please.
I forget which colleague it was, though.
We've got so many.
I don't know if it was Jay. I don't know if it was Todd. I don't know if it was Alan. I don't know if it was Sam. I don't know who it was who said, whatever you're going to measure is going to be manipulated.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I'm not a fan of quotas for that reason, especially when you're like, you want someone to do near misses and you want to do good catches. But when you put a quota on that, especially if it's a quota or a certain amount, and by the end of the work week, you're going to get some quality stuff at first, but towards the end of the work week, I may have tripped on my shoelace, but I noticed it and I tied my shoelace, near miss. And it's going to get watered down. Your data's going to get lost.
I have somewhere one of the funniest near misses ever, where a guy went and he started complaining about his coworkers. He went on a rant about his coworker. He was an angry old man and blah, blah, blah. And that's why this happened.
Wow.
So, but the thing is, it was true. He was an angry old man. So he was just angry at everybody, hated everybody. And like I was saying, now I'm not tuning my own horn here, but a lot of this was not the way that I was brought up, right? Because, I had a mother, and it's been on the program, February 11th, 2021, I think was the program, was my mother had been expatriated from Poland during World War II, sent to concentration camps in Archangel, Russia, in northern port city, and had made her way all through, not too many people made it out of there, by the way, made her way all through Asia and everything else, and grew up with many different Asian cultures, whether it was Polish, right? She was now Polish, then it was Russian, and then it was Persian, and then it was Indian, and then before she finally made it to the United States into Bayonne via San Francisco.
Wow.
Right.
Man, you can almost see that map as you're naming those countries. I'm kind of like in my brain following the line. I'm like, wow, you can see the migration map.
I had Imogene Salva on who wrote a book on her mother's situation, which was the same as my mother's. So this was foreign. No, when I went to college, right? I said I've had doctors and everything of all different races. Doesn't matter. So this was a little bit weird. When I went to college, I told you about this before. My father said, "You're there at college," and my mother to a lesser, primarily my father. You have to learn about the way other people are. You got to learn about other cultures. You got to learn about that. Not everybody thinks the way that you do, Jimmy. So I probably could have gotten an African American Studies certificate with a little bit more effort, but no, I took all these courses, Black Power, I took, and all this others to learn how other people felt and thought. So I'm not surprised by today's social situations with everything, because like the DEI instructor that I'm going through right now, the program said they feel that things are going so slowly with the culture evolving that everything, once everybody was on lockdown and had time to think and reflect, and because of these things here, I'm holding up a smartphone, right?
Oh, yes.
And video. Now we have the situation where, and I'm not one bit surprised, I think a lot of these companies are pushing back because of this. And I think,
and they're looking
I'm not
at
the
it.
first one to call it white fragility, but it's white fragility.
Yeah,
times.
There's a component of that, and there's just there's also a component where there are some people who are purposely manipulating some people who don't know the actual the benefit for thinking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So there's you always have to ask why. Why is someone going to such length, if you would, to try to make this thing where it's going to hurt an organization rather than help an organization? And then when you think of the people who are actually trying and they're doing the training and everything else, but they're doing it out of fear without knowing the purpose. So they think if I don't do a diversity training, then I'm going to get some sort of lawsuit or I'm going to get some sort of legal jeopardy, and it makes no sense.
So maybe this is not the best question for you, because I don't know if you know this, and I don't want to blindside you here.
No, go ahead.
Well, other than the obvious anti-discrimination laws and everything else out there, are there any real legal requirements? And I know with ISO there might be, or on ESG, right, environmental social governance, right, there might be. Are there any really legal requirements for this?
The only thing
is more of a cultural.
There is no like wording in any kind of laws that I see, or to my knowledge at all, with the terminology DEI. What they'll say is just discrimination laws, and then usually that's going to be in your hiring practices, and then also in your application of whatever the job description is for that person. If you you have a certain rules for a set of people and they follow the job description, and you have another set of rules for another set of people and they're also following the job description, then what's the difference? The difference is usually going to be a religion or something, or you just don't like this person. Why? So that's going to be more important than trying to for law's sake, making sure that everybody's going to be treated equally, but it doesn't have a quota or anything that you need to hit to say you've got a blended room that's, I've got 10% Italian, I've got 10% German, I got 10% African, I got 10% Vietnamese, there's no laws like that.
So, well, this is the challenge, and now we're going to make this safety related, right? Before our conversation here, I mentioned they're about 25 or 30 years from where we were back in the early 90s. And I can see the challenges of implementing these policies, because under OSHA, right, the Occupational Safety and Health Act, Williams Steiger, right, Senator Williams from New Jersey, right? Congressperson Steiger from Wisconsin,
Yeah.
right? By the way, I was teaching the class. I mentioned that, and somebody in the class, that's my uncle, right? I said, well, did he ever tell you about the Occupational Safety and Health Act? No. So this is probably his greatest achievement.
It really is. It's the stuff that was, for those of you listening, it's the act that preceded OSHA. So whenever you did business with the government made you follow this act so that you now could be under a minimum standard for safety.
Right. But what the idea was, my point is this. This is by federal law. Everyone has a right to safe and healthful workplace free of recognized hazards. I think we know that time immemorial. We all know that by heart if you're a safety professional. We have issues even today. Just listen to my show and your show. We have issues today of implementing something that is a federally defined civil right, and laws and codified and everything else. Now, do we see where we have something that is not codified, unless you can make it a convoluted kind of way, like an ISO or ANSI or one of the other non-governmental industry standards. Now you can see where we have a problem here with this. I think that's the problem that we're seeing here, is that we're getting a lot of people, and there's a lot of burnout. I mean, I'm listening to the instructor, and I'm like, yeah, this is why why I do what I do. Yeah. It's at the burnout, and nobody wants to hear it. Blah, 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 blah. And some companies have gone the other way where it's actually impacted their bottom line. I know of 5 organizations where this negatively impacted their bottom line, and they don't see any benefit to it, so why should we do it? And it's like the same arguments I hear about everything. Why should I buy? I plan on doing this job without fall protection. Now you're telling me I got to go out and spend $400, $500 on a setup here, and I have to send them out for competent person training, and we got to send them out, the employees out for authorized user training, and we got to do a subpart M training, and then we got to do subpart R training on steel erection. No, I'm not doing it. Because this job was scoped out that we're not going to use any fall protection, and you're going to be sitting in the trailer eating donuts and drinking coffee.
Yeah, and honestly, it's the same mindset. It's the same principle that you would see with trying to integrate any kind of diversity. If you're already in a network, or at least a group that is resistant to change, they're going to automatically be resistant to change. That's what they do. So
it's not in their business model.
It's not in their business model.
We're used to doing this, and the other thing is their surety and way. Hey, we're doing it this way. We haven't had an issue before, and I use it like this. Just because you have not had legal action, meaning a lawsuit, report to an agency, somebody hurt, somebody whatever. Yeah. Just because you never had a legal problem doesn't mean that you don't have a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the same thing with people who are trying to the employers that get fatigued with trying to implement DEI policies and training and everything else. Chances are, if you're going to do some sort of analysis on why they are getting that kind of fatigue and everything, it's because they may have not been fully trained on how to implement things, and they're trying to do things just by numbers, and the actual execution is getting lost. So, for instance, if they are mandatory trainings for a half hour once a week on the same topic, you are absolutely wasting your time, and that is going to be something that you're going to say we have to do, air quotes again for those of you who can't see, but if you're like having to do it, why? If there's no legal thing and you just want to prove because you're acting in fear, you want to prove that you have training and write it in and have people sign off on it, the activity itself is draining for you, and it's going to yield no fruit. So you are self-sabotaging a system. The organization is literally self-sabotaging the implementation to say it doesn't work. So the system is set up to do what the system does. So if they're implementing it in the wrong way, it's going to be continually producing what they implemented because that's what they did. So they are self-sabotaging the system by doing those activities and then hitting their head against a wall, but not wanting to pivot and change and truly embrace the DEI as opposed to resist it.
Right. What I would do And this sounds ridiculous, I know. But what I would do if it were me, implement DEI, I would do it. I'd call it something else, rebrand it a little bit. And I would go and I would have, like we have weekly safety meetings or toolbox talks. I would do that on things. But the thing is, it would include a lot of different, the ideas of DEI in smaller pieces, but they would have to be different.
Oh, yeah.
So you're not like, oh, wow, we're talking about I'll use the safety analogy. We're talking about the same slip, trip, and fall hazards every week, and it's like, okay, there's slip or eye hazards.
Yes.
Right. But what you could do is give me a call, 845-269-5772, or talk to Sheldon here, and we can set you up with an annual safety meeting program that's not a repeat every week, that is relevant to your organization. So
yeah,
that's a little commercial.
Yeah. Great commercial. No, but the safety application is everything that we do is safety. So, like for instance, if you're going to implement more diversity, more equity, more inclusion, that may be another way of doing it is like literally just saying the term instead of saying DEI. Then that might also get people to break down what the meanings of the words are. But the safety implication is there's one underlining is the psychological safety. A worker gets disengaged and they feel like they're not valued by the organization. You're also going to be addressing another thing called self-determination. There's a model out there with Deci and Ryan, Ryan, called the self-determination theory. So if you're going to have a worker feel really good about what they're doing, part of that is going to be not only autonomy, but they want to feel like their work matters. And if they don't even feel like their life matters, then they don't have that self-determination to do work. They're disengaged. Disengaged workers take risk. Increase of risk as the possibility for more injuries and illness. So that's the safety thread. But if you give psychological safety to someone, they feel like even if you give them an offer to go to a employee assistance program and give them that card that says, hey, call somebody, talk to somebody. I noticed that you don't have to tell me anything. It's not my business, but it's my business to make sure you're safe at work. Here, call somebody, talk to somebody, and you offer that card. That's part of psychological safety, and that's, again, you're showing someone cares. They're going to be committed to at least saying the business or the organization noticed me, and that's engagement that you want, because when you get engaged, a worker now is going to focus on the job. They're also going to feel there's also body chemistry there being released as well. When you get that team team feeling, you're also going to get that release of all the endorphins, if you would. You're going to get the release of serotonin.
Absolutely. We used to just call it treating people like human beings.
Yes.
Well, I think
100%.
The advantage of doing this is that it's organized more. I think now, if you're going to accomplish something, you got to be organized, usually.
Yep.
And you have to have a system in place. I think a lot of these systems, putting them in place, probably a good thing there. With that, and I know we all have, and I've always been this way. This is why it didn't really work out in a lot of the corporate settings I was in, where we had a guy who got hurt. And, the old safety trope, that doesn't work. Well, what's your family going to think if you can't work? That doesn't, 90% of the time in my experience, that goes in one ear and out the other. You might as well be talking to Shrek here, And you might as well, it ain't going to matter.
Not going to matter.
Unfortunately, it should, but it doesn't. I'm going to be honest. And then I said, well, what do you mean? I don't have a family. Now, how would I ever know that if I'm issuing this big program without actually getting him personally involved? I said to him, well, what do you mean you don't have a family? I don't have my wife. I got divorced. My wife took everything, and all my relatives are dead. I don't have anybody. That's just me. And I said, oh, so you don't matter to anybody, is what you're telling me. He said, no. I said, where did you get your coffee? I see you got coffee, right? You bought it at a deli or something. Tell me about that coffee. Where did you, well, what do you mean? I said, well, I got it from the local market. I said, who did you buy it from at the local market? Says Samantha. I said, tell me about Samantha. He said, well, she's 17 years old, works every morning before school. Now she helps out the parents. The place opens up at 5 a.m. She works from 5 to 7, then she goes to high school. I said, if you got hurt with Sam, will that impact Samantha? He told me all about Samantha. I won't go. He told me all about her because, see, I've known her since she's 6 years old. I've been going to the same place for coffee. This is in central Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. So you think it would impact her if you got hurt or you didn't show up? You got killed on the job? And he was like, and then it hit him. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, what mattered to Samantha? Okay.
Yep.
All right. You're not going to get that through this big pie in the sky program, but you got to get a little bit involved.
Oh, yeah.
People sometimes appropriately. I'm going to say appropriately.
Yeah. And that's consistent because your programs, you set them up, you write them up, you do everything you need, your written programs, your actual, the work that you're doing, your JSAs and everything else. But when it's time for implementation, then that's where the rubber meets the road and you're actually going to, see the results and the fruit of your results. So it's consistent that, you're going to end up in, when you see workers and you're training them, you want to get them at their level. So the kinesthetic learners, they're going to need to actually feel it. Yeah. They're going to feel it. So if you're in a topic with fall protection and you're going to tell them about, steel erection 15 feet, you get tied off. And if not, what's going to happen to you? All right. So let's say you got extremely lucky and you broke a leg. All right. Let's tie up that leg. Let's see what it looks like. Walk around here with that leg up. Let them feel it. Let the kinesthetic learner feel those things. All right, you're working with chemicals. You got some in your eyes because you're not wearing your glasses. Close your eyes for me. Come on, just walk to me. I'm going to listen to my voice. Walk to me. How does that feel? And now those workers, now the kinesthetic type, they'll learn auditory. You got them. They're listening to you like podcast mode. The visual learners, they'll be looking at you. They'll look at your video. They're in. The kinesthetic learners that you're the ones that really need to feel things. You gotta put them in the position to feel it, to go through it. The senses has to, as best as you can, experience it. So now it's going to stick with them a little longer, and hopefully that's just a training.
You just gave a whole safety meeting on adult education here. You do realize that. We need to wrap things up here because it's a nice, beautiful, glorious Sunday morning here.
Yeah, before it gets to 103, I'm stuck in OKC.
Where are you?
I'm in Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma, yeah.
105 today.
We're dealing with a 95% humidity and so we're just as miserable.
All right, go to Jones Beach.
Yeah.
That's where we used to hang out.
I'll be in that neighborhood tomorrow. It's getting involved with people and being person to person and everything else is a lot of stuff out there with that. With the blindness, there is a better way of doing it. I don't think it's legal or not. I think it would get the person hurt, right? People say, well, close your eyes, imagine you're blind. That's not the actual analog from what I've read, and I've spoken to a couple. It's the equivalent when you go blind, like from an industrial injury, or let's say you have to have your eyes extracted for some reason, like cancer or something like that. Yeah. You actually see white light. It's like someone shining a spotlight in your eyes all the time. And that's why they have blind people often have problems. They had commercials here in the New York area for years where they have no sleep. They have sleep disorders because they can't get to sleep because it's like they're always getting hit with floodlight in their face at all times, So, like I said, that would probably be illegal. You'd probably burn someone's retina if you
So you're going to have the light up? Where are you in the night? Nice interrogation.
Oh, yeah, we're well, I'm a Star Trek fan, right?
Oh,
There's one episode on The Next Generation where you have Picard gets captured by the Cardassians. I was just watching it the other day. I forget the name of it. And now how many lights are there, right? And there's 4 lights. No, there's 5 lights. Yeah, and then you torture the person. This is like how the way a lot of safety investigations go. Yep. It's going to go one way. And now I'm to the point where I say, and the challenge is the clients often. I said, do you want an accident investigation? You want a one pager, or do you want an accident investigation? If you want a one pager, I'm not your guy. If you want an actual investigation, I'm definitely your guy. Or if I'm not your guy, I know somebody who is, because, scheduling and everything else. Because again, what do you want out of that investigation? Do you want to just file a piece of paper? What is the OSHA 300A form? Is it with the
summary?
Actual accident?
The 301. Yeah.
301, right? Where it's the, it's one page and it doesn't tell you anything.
Yeah.
You mean the regulation, but it's really not telling you anything.
Yeah, and that actually is if you go to OSHA's budget, not to throw you too far away, because we're wrapping it up, right, brother? But the OSHA budget will tell you the intent of that record keeping law, and the intent.
What's the intent?
The intent is if you see here's the rule of thumb. How's that? Rule of thumb is going to be if you see if you're required to keep records, and especially if you're one of these high hazard industries that hit the NAICS codes that OSHA writes up, the rule of thumb is if you see 3 years of increase, you're going to get yourself an inspection. So 3 years, and that's and it's going to be a way, because now your EIN number is tied into your electronic record keeping. OSHA has the 300 log, the 301, and the 300A log now with certain companies, which they wanted to do from the first time they made this rule. They came back and got it in, and the purpose is to cut their budget and put their FTEs on people who are not reporting, and then people who are also they're doing you're self-reporting, that you're getting an increase every 3 years. They're going to kind of review your numbers, if you would. So you will see more of OSHA even in general industry because of that.
Well, that's what it is. So, in conclusion,
Some of
this is over time here. But anyway, was there anything you wanted to conclude with? I think we had a pretty good conversation here.
Oh, no.
With everything.
No, that was fine. I just really love just touching base with you, and it's been so long. And honestly, I did the whole DEI because there's so many people who on my podcast that were just thinking it's evil, and I'm like, well, it's not a cuss word. It's not a four-letter word by any word. It's just, when you truly understand it, it's just the best way to get equity or not equity, excuse me, you get functional as an organization, and to get, get some more ideas. And it all goes to psychological safety, because now that's the new frontier for safety. We're finally, COVID broke us, quite honestly, as an industry for a little bit, and then we had to rebend and get caught up really quick. And this is one of the things that we saw to fortify our safety system is, we forgot about the brain, the psychological side, the emotions. So I'm glad to talk to someone about that stuff. And if you need to look for me, anybody, then just go to sheldonprimus.com. Nice and simple.
Nice. This is sheldonprimus.com.
That's it.
What I'm trying to figure out here, I wrote a book. I wrote a letter to one of my, I can't find it here. All right. Back in 2011, right? This was the last of my political type stuff, right? And what I pointed out was, and this is 2011, all that people have to do, right? And everyone knows I'm an independent conservative. I'm not, I'm registered Republican, but I'm really, not registered. I'm conservative / libertarian. All right. They, when people figure it out how much they're being screwed, that's when we were going to have turmoil.
Yeah.
And what happened was everybody's working. I put in typically 14 to 16 hour days at work, right? Especially with one of my current projects, which is coming to an end sometime next year. I'm working, and when I'm not on that project, I'm on that project 3 weeks a month. When I'm not on that project, I'm catching up on everything for the 2 weeks I'm off. All right, so I'm on 3, off 2. I'm working. I know you're in the same situation. The situation you're in is a little bit different because you're mobile all the time.
Yeah.
Right. Which is, we talked about that last time, and you're having time doing that, right?
And we're 2 weeks away from Mexico for 6 months.
Right. So, you're always working, you're always doing something, you're always doing, whatever. And that's how everybody else is trying to make ends meet. And then what happened is the COVID pandemic, and everybody's at home watching TV, on the computer, on the smartphone, playing video games, whatever.
Yeah.
Cooped up in their house. Now people have time to reflect and everything. And that's a direct consequence of what we're dealing with now. And the safety field, this is how I got involved in podcasts and everything. In the safety field, there's a lot of crossover between safety and DEI, as I see it. Maybe I'm naive, maybe I'm not. Or maybe I'm seeing a connection that I want to be there that isn't there. Whatever. There's a lot of congruity between the two. I think that it's not an enemy. We should be working together.
Yeah.
With this. We don't have to be enemies. And unfortunately, like everything else, politicians get involved to push things.
Yeah.
And things that we never intended this to go to have gone there. And this is where our issue is. And I think that's where we're having issues with. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. That's my read on it.
Yeah, I'm agreed. It's practical. And when you really think about it, what would make workers feel like you care? Just do that. Whatever you think will make a worker feel like you care, do that, and everything else will work out.
All right. So your website and podcast and everything?
Yes, SheldonPrimus.com. The podcast, any service that you have, just type in Safety Consultant and it'll come out Safety Consultant with Sheldon Primus, and then safetyconsultant.tv. So you're able to get my written templates. I give you all that stuff from the site on Safety Consultant TV and download that stuff. So got me on all those 3 places.
And everyone here knows me. My office phone, 845-269-5772. Jim at SafetyWars.com. SafetyWars.com is the website. And you'll go into any one of your search engines. Safety Wars, Jim Poesl, Poesl. Not the other way, please. Easy to remember, all right? Poesl, but how do you say it? My favorite word is proposal. Proposal, right? Favorite word. So, okay. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Sheldon. I'm going to stop right here.
That's a wrap for today's Safety Show. Remember, safety isn't just about hard hats and caution signs. It's about business smarts, too. Thanks for joining us on the Safety Consultant Show with Sheldon Primus. Until next time, stay safe, stay savvy, and keep consulting like a boss. Go get 'em. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast or broadcast are those of the host and its guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the company. Examples of analysis discussed within the past hour, only examples. It should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based only on very limited and dated open source information. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the positions of the company. No part of this podcast or broadcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast or broadcast, Sheldon Primus.
This episode has been powered by SafetyFM.